Is there somebody specific you want to address, or is it something you want to let the whole world know that they should give some attention to?
Yes, a little bit whole world give some attention to,
Yeah.
sort of thing, really.
Yeah, because we like to believe that the whole world is going to actually listen.
Well, I've got something to the effect on my YouTube site. I've only got 2 films, neither of which I feature in, but it's like my imaginary audience. That's how I see it. The world is my imaginary audience.
Yeah. Well, we're here.
Yeah, yeah.
But meanwhile, you can just address it to me. I can represent the whole world. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
Responsibility.
Well, if it were that easy, I know we'd solve this problem, overnight then, Ashra.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Because I know you'll get where I'm coming from.
Okay. So what is it you want to talk about?
It's non-compostable single-use plastics. They're really have been destroying the environment for a very long time, but I think it's time for us to sort of stop using them entirely. I think the plastic bags issue that we're all familiar with, the freebies that we get from the supermarket, are just actually not quite as bad, or as plastic bottles that water and drinks come in, as they are a thicker sort of plastic and take even longer to break down. And all of the non-compostable plastics don't actually disappear. They just become smaller and smaller particles, which end up in our bloodstreams, particularly if we eat fish.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful film on YouTube where some guys, a group of people, went looking for the island of trash that is supposed to sit in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I think they call it I should have looked it up, a gyre of plastic.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, it doesn't actually exist as an island. Most of it's below the surface, but it's in such quantities that it appears as a mass on radar and on some satellite images, but it's not actually something you can go and sit on.
Yeah.
It's just in the water. And you've probably also seen those films of really tragic images of dead birds with little piles of plastic inside them, all over a wonderful island that's actually not even inhabited by human beings. It's a sort of wildlife sanctuary, and yet there's thousands and thousands of little dead bodies that have been destroyed through eating bits of plastic. And of course, because it's plastic, the bodies decompose, as is nature, but the plastic doesn't go away. So there's this, what appears to be sort of little piles of, little piles of various coloured bits of plastic sitting where a bird used to live. Oh. And all this is not, it's every day it's getting worse, because every day we're using more plastic, and it, like I say, it doesn't actually go away. So now when I look in a supermarket or a newsagent and I see how many plastic bottles there are on display, it's just pretty horrifying. I now make a point of not buying them, and will only buy a drink if it comes in a plastic bottle or some sort of carton, because then I know I'm not contributing to that particular nasty form of pollution.
Is that what you suggest people do? Because obviously there are things we can do.
It is. I really feel that is the main way we can alter it, is by refusing to buy plastic bottles of any kind, or anything in a plastic bottle. I mean, for some people it's going to be difficult. For me, I've never really been a big water buyer, but I've also would, if I could, try and reintroduce the idea of reusable glass bottles, because they're great. Glass is fine in the sea. In fact, it turns into wonderful sand again, the stuff in which it originally was made from, or lovely bits of jewel-like pebbles. So we don't have a problem with that in the sea, or in the countryside even. In fact, my brother used to dig up old bottles from a bottle dump when he was a kid, because they're like interesting artifacts after a couple of generations or so, or 100 years. So glass, I want to see glass replacing all that plastic myself. I'd love it for children to be able to go out and collect up glass bottles and get a bit of money from the newsagents like we used to. It's a bit of a puzzle to me why we ever went for the plastic. It can't possibly be that much cheaper than a reusable bottle.
It's lighter. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I think you're right. The main issue is the lightness of the plastic, and also, some of the festivals that were saying, "Oh, you can't use glass," are now saying you can't use plastic. So we some of us are switching back round to realising that actually those plastic bottles are not the solution for anything. In fact, they're a danger to our health and the health of the wildlife on the planet, and the most enduring of substances. I love plastic, don't get me wrong. I think where would we be without our plastic? That's my phone. Where would we be without our plastic bowl for washing up in, or certain containers? They're ideal. In fact, I could see plastic containers replacing some of the nasty cellophane-like plastics we've got on our products in the supermarket. So, there's ways in which it can be used, as long as it's not dumped in that casual way that it is now. In fact, it's the one thing.
Sorry.
It's the last thing in the bin, in the sense that hasn't got a recyclable outlets. Some people say, "Oh, well, it gets turned into fleece." Well, not all of it does get turned into fleece, and a lot of the stuff that gets casually thrown out of boat windows and car windows ends up really just sitting in
So what happens to the bottles? Because our local council, they do collect and apparently recycle plastic bottles. Are you saying they don't recycle them?
I'm suspicious of how much gets genuinely recycled. I mean, they've all got their PET number on them now, PET number or whatever it is, which I think is like a badge of reassurance that somehow, somewhere, somebody's noted the chemical makeup of that particular item and will be looking to recycling it. Well, I don't know that we're all going to be wearing fleece to that amount that really we can pretend to ourselves that that's what it all gets turned into. No, I don't believe it. There are compostable plastics. They're amazing. I use them for my compost bag. They're made from cornstarch, and they definitely do break down.
Yeah.
They break down chemically rather than just reduce in size. There's a sort of difference between decomposition and erosion, and most of the bags just erode into smaller particles, whereas the corn-based starch that these compostable plastics are made from are not harmful to the environment.
Yes, I use them too. Yeah, and I always have to have water, as you possibly know. So I have a stainless steel water bottle, because I get very concerned about the number of plastic bottles. I'm
now wishing I looked up the the actual chemical that can be given off into water, you probably know about that's all with plastic bottles. It's not even really safe to drink from plastic, certain plastics that is, because they give off chemicals that are known to be found in the lymphatic system and in certain types of tumours. So we live in a world which doesn't really want to look after us anymore. We're run by people who would rather keep their friends happy than look after us in the way in which they were meant to. Very odd, really, because I thought that the world was going to improve in that way. I really did.
Me too.
I thought my parents were very optimistic after the war. In fact, the whole human race was very optimistic after the war that we've finally got rid of these people that would impose their will on us, and we can start getting what we put them in, we vote them in to do, you know. So, but no, it's really bizarre how most of the information now seems to suggest that the opposite is true, that we're voting in people who just don't really care about our welfare and are very easily persuaded by the arguments of the multinationals and are convinced by those arguments because it suits them. So nobody's really looking to the better solutions of glass and, I don't know, paper bags like we used to use.
Yeah, why not paper bags?
Yeah. Why not? It's very easy to recycle.
And why not people, for instance, have their own shopping bags? Which we always used to. You know, when I was a kid and went shopping with my mum, we had, you know, like sort of 6 or 7 shopping bags that we took with us, and yeah.
Saying that, and some of them were made of plastic, oddly enough, but they were reused and reused, and they lasted for years and years, and quite often ended up being used for something else. Once they'd outgrown their use as a functioning bag, they'd probably just hold something in a cupboard somewhere eventually, you know. And yes, the same. My mum would have a particular bag for the vegetables she'd buy, whereas, and I do now actually. I'm a bit the same. I go to a market and I take a bag to it, and I refuse plastic bags. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Occasionally I do have to grab a plastic bag, but I always feel a bit of a gut wrench doing so now. Now I'm on this anti-single-use plastic sort of personal crusade. Yeah. I don't want to be contributing to that, but it's sort of everywhere you look, in a way, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, because
looking at this, right? Yeah, go on.
Go on, show me. Carry on.
I was going to show you this little thing of plastic cotton wool. You know, I'm looking at that thinking, well, that could have been compostable plastic. I'm pretty sure we could have got away with that. Very. Everyone knows that I'm against single-use plastics, and so I'm very aware, and I'm not aware that a lot of people are anti-plastics. You know, the carrier bags. That particular movement has taken hold to a certain extent, to the point where my local purveyors of plastic bags will ask, do you want a bag, rather than just automatically give you one like they did in the past.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the fact that some supermarkets charge for them as well. Yes. It makes it a choice rather than a sort of unconscious
It makes
option.
People think as well. Just if they've got to pay 5p or whatever, maybe they'll think on. I'm
struggling to think how I could persuade the world to retake up the glass again. I mean, that'd be so good, wouldn't it? It does make you, and I do feel whenever I buy a drink in a glass bottle, I like the company more because they have used glass bottle. I'm also thinking, oh well, they've charged me a bit more for it as well. But I also can, if the lid's good enough, I can reuse that bottle myself.
Yeah.
Which I often do.
So, is there something that you'd like to say in a sort of summing up?
Yes, I would just like to say that every time you, the world, go into a shop and think about buying a drink. Think about buying a drink without a plastic or that isn't in plastic. Think about buying it in a tin, which can be recycled, or in a bottle. And then look at how much is on that shelf and how much is going to end up in a landfill by the end of the week. And you might think that a lot of that will get recycled, but quite honestly, it doesn't get recycled into more plastic. It gets reused as a different material, and not all of it. I don't believe all the recycling propaganda. Not true.
Okay.
That's really about it. And yes, maybe if I wish I had a little. Next time, I will have a website that you can join, the Let's Bring Back Reusable Glass Bottles, and some sort of campaign. I think possibly in 6 months to a year's time, I will actually have committed to making something like that happen. But it does take a lot of energy to
Yeah, let me know when you
get
do.
a thing like that started.
Let me know when you do. I'll publicise it, of course.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. She'll talk to somebody who can help, I think.